Let me find a game. Let me make money a game and I can win at it. Really, that's magical thinking. Money isn't a game. More people lose in the stock market, their investments, their homes, big investments, even marriages, because you make it a win-lose proposition instead of what is the gift of the situation that I'm in? What new skills do I need to learn? How can I turn this around and give myself the time and the discipline to do it?
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Consciouspreneur podcast. I am your host, Dr. Mary Meduna-Gross, and today I am so pleased to be sharing this space with Jeannie Dougherty. Did I say that correct?
It's Dougherty, but that's fine. It's totally fine. Everyone pronounces it differently.
Okay. All right. The important piece is that Jeannie is a determined woman ready to make a positive impact in the world. She is a consciouspreneur. Jeannie Dougherty continues to help people from all walks of life. She is a coveted counselor, certified money coach, speaker, facilitator, and trainer. Moreover, she works with businesses, individuals, and couples to help them find better ways to reach their goals. Over the years, her efforts have earned her a reputation among clients who are ever eager to vouch for her holistic services. Jeannie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So as we always do, I want to hear your story. We're going to get to your expertise in the later part of this, but tell us a little bit about your entrepreneurial story and how you got here.
Yeah. So it feels like, so much time has elapsed, and yet it was like, oh, this just happened like a couple of weeks ago, right? But years ago, I lived in Arizona. I lived in Phoenix. That's where I trained for my counseling degree. And at that time, the Great Recession was definitely happening, and the West Coast got hit harder than other parts of the country, for sure. So I ended up working with a lot of people who had major financial issues. So we're talking like foreclosure, we're talking bankruptcy, we're talking bad divorce, we're talking your child is very sick with a health issue and you've got to figure out how to pay for all kinds of stuff. We're just talking like student loan debt. And then, how do I pay my rent this month? So I dealt with people who had all kinds of major financial issues. But by the time I would see them, they were anxious, depressed, not sleeping, not eating, horrible family fights, all kinds of stuff. And so I just continued to do my work, but I was really successful when it came to the financial piece and the communication piece, and particularly in families. And I was helpful. I mean, I figured out as a sort of a budding counselor, if you will, how people could sell their home in the midst of a crappy, recession. I was figuring out all this stuff from like a financial perspective. And I think part of it was just because I was like, oh, this is a problem that can be solved. There will be a way through this. And my job was just basically to help people, here are your options. If you want to find a different one, here's how you find them. And then here's what we're going to do next. And so I did that for a number of years, and I moved to the East Coast. Now my office is in Bethesda, Maryland. And, I still had people, still the Great Recession, people were still coming out of it, still major issues with, family communication. People had homes, they had lost value, still divorces, people are on drugs, like all kinds of stuff. And I still worked with them and still was like, people were like, they said to me more than once, I would have made it through without you. There's no way I would have been able to figure this out on my own. Like you got me through another black hole in my life or whatever the expression was. And I was like, awesome. And I continued to do my work. And then 2018, I'm also a dancer, not professionally trained. Sorry, nothing like that. But I'm a dancer. And I went to a dance workshop and I found out about money coaching. I had no idea that the whole
dance workshop. I love it.
I was like a holistic. This is like my stress management. Like, let me go dance for a few hours. So I joined like a personal development program for 1 year. So from 2018 to 2019, we met, as a huge group, and like we really got into people's money stories. Like, people, their parents were prostitutes. They were homeless and had been on drugs. They had survived a war. They had, all kinds of things that happened. And then you had people who were like, I'm really well to do and I can't accept it. It's so shameful for me because when I think about what's going on in the world. So we really did. And it was just so profound, so many good shifts. People like really got better with their money, felt better about their money. And it was really like the thing. And so at the end of 2019, I was like, I'm going to become a money coach. That's going to be my thing. Right. And then, the pandemic hit in 2020 and I went, no, not this year.
Yeah.
Not today. Nope. We're going to be focused on other things. And so what I did is 2021, I got my cert finally, but I had been money coaching for a number of years without understanding that was money coaching. So I was trained in a particular, what we call money psychology style, which is fantastic. And then just as I had finished, I had a friend who's a coach and she was like, hey, I really think you should try this mental fitness training. I was like, what's this mental fitness thing? And so it was pretty fantastic, but I learned how to do mental fitness just as a client, when I went through the program, and I was amazed at all the shifts that I had. Like, I didn't realize that during the pandemic, my sense of joy had disappeared. Like, I was very focused on like, what's next? How am I going to handle this? Working with all kinds of clients, nobody's happy. And having to explain like, look, this isn't a happy time in our lives. So this is the dark stuff. So this is when we journal and this is when we take it one day at a time. And so that worked for a period of time. But then I was like, oh, I have an opportunity to train with these people. And I was like, oh, I think I will, I was really impressed how quickly in a short amount of time, in less than 15 minutes a day, not just me, but everyone I talked to, I had I think a few thousand in my cohort. And like the stories that were coming, you have no idea. I'm sleeping, better tonight. I'm eating. I've lost weight. I'm back at the gym. All kinds of things were happening. And so I was sort of like, well, I guess I do two separate things. I'm going to be a money coach and I will do the mental fitness. But the more and more I sat with it, the more I was like, no, I want to integrate this. And so I talked to the founder, Shahzad Kameen, or I think he calls himself Shameen. Sorry, I always think Kameen, but it's CH, Shameen. And he was like, you guys need to go and make this your own. However you want to do it, go do it. And so I integrated the money coaching with the mental fitness, and I created my very own 10-week program. But before I did that, I had to give a presentation to all of my fellow coaches and explain how to harness your money sage power, because that's something that we talk not about money sage power, but having sage power. Like, how can you make something that's really bad a gift? So I did that, and I received like thousands of like, oh my God, I never thought of it this way. I'll have a ton of money issues myself. And I just, there's no way I would have thought my way through this. This is going to help me change what I'm doing in my business. And this is amazing. And I was profoundly thanked. And here's the interesting thing. The founder, the very famous neuroscientist from Stanford, had big time money issues himself. When he first started as a coach, he only charged $50 for an hour, and he felt terrible about it. He thought he was like robbing people. And so he wasn't the ideal character to do money coaching, if you will, because it takes a special skill set to want to sit down and talk to people about what's going on with the psychology of their money and how it impacts their behaviors. But also, like, what are you trying to do with your money? Like, your money will do nothing if you tell it to do nothing. That's exactly what to do. But if you want it to do something, so if you want to grow it, or you want to invest it, or you want to pay off a debt, or you want to buy a house in a highly competitive market, or you need to sell a house in a very slow market, how are you going to do that? You got to tell your money what to do. Like, how do you buy a car? I just had a conversation earlier this week. Woman, very bright, she has a PhD, man. She's a doctor. She's a doctor. And she knows how to handle her money. She's been doing it her whole life, right? She's good. And she hates buying a car. She had one bad car buying experience as a woman. And she literally was like, kind of like trying to hand it off to what man that I know in my life will be able to help me buy a car. Cause I'm overwhelmed with this. And I was like, really?
Yeah.
Ooh, and that's the psychology that we put ourselves in of like, I don't want to move. It's going to be too hard. I don't want to get another job. It's going to be too hard on me. I can't do this. And yet we need to make more money for whatever the reason. Or I need to ask for a raise. I don't know how to do that. And there's millions of stuff, on the internet, articles, there's tons of knowledge, but it doesn't matter how pretty much on Google, we can get just about, I would say, probably 80 to 90% of all of our answers, or at least know where we could go get better information offline. It's how we understand the information. It's how we digest it. That's what matters. The minute it becomes our information, like I can buy into this, then it becomes knowledge is power. Otherwise, it's just data that we don't take seriously.
Yeah, exactly. We let it go by. It's not for us. Or, one of the things that you said early on in this story is that you saw a solution. No matter what problem about money your clients brought to you, you knew there was going to be a solution to it. And as you were describing that, what popped into my mind is that those clients were in that position because they didn't believe there was a solution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's part of the genius of being trained as a counselor. Our job is to hold the light, if you will, for the client and to see where they can go instead of like, I don't know. And in fairness to everybody who's had a money issue, you weren't trained properly by your family or in school. You never really learned it. So it's not unusual to have a money oopsie. It's not unusual that you will have at least one good money crisis in your life that you're going to have to learn, which is usually, for most people, it's divorce. That's usually what it is. Sometimes it's a job change or you're out of work. Occasionally it's a health issue, that's severe that you can't work or you can't work the way you used to. So it's things like that that really impact us as adults that we're either taught by absolute fear. When you get older, something's going to happen to you.
That's right.
You're
That whole scarcity thing, right?
Woo! And you're going to have to hang on. You better hope you have everything in your savings account.
Right.
People don't live like that. And honestly, for some people, that's not the way to live. They've got way too many expenses. They don't want to live that way. So why would you try to force them into a role that they don't want to be in anyway?
Right. I'm curious, without getting too personal here, but what are some of the money shifts that you've been able to make with this combination?
So part of my money story too that I haven't shared too much is that my mother, she passed away a few years ago, and we found out there had been some what I would say some very interesting transactions that happened in her estate that were not done by me or my family. It was done outside. So I learned about anyway financial exploitation that occurred at the expense of her care and her money. So that was a big, big thing. So having to, after somebody passes away, having to then get a lawyer to go figure out what happened. It was a huge mess. So I have like a ton of knowledge about that. And also like warning people, here's where I don't have a red flag, sorry. Here's where the red flag is. And this is what you're going to need to know. So you can, find like the right people, state attorneys, or, ask the right questions, or, here's what you're legally entitled to know. So that was a big thing. But for my own personal thing, I'm launching another business in the middle of a pandemic, and I'm doing great. I doubled my income when I finally figured out, this is how you use mental fitness and the money. I got it. I know how to do this. I know I can show people how to do this. Let's see. I have no problem having clients come to me. I have no problem working with people who are couples, because not every money coach is trained to work with couples, because they are different. They usually have very different money stories. One's typically a saver, the other one's a spender, shocker. Or you have somebody who's like all me, like I made the money, therefore I should go and do all this. And the person's like, well, what about the family? So those are different money values. So having people to come to the same page to determine, hey, do you want to continue this marriage financially speaking? Because this is what's happening. And then number two, divorce is the number one or number two reason people get divorced. They fight over money. Really sad. So when you meet with a money coach, you can save yourself how much money in a divorce?
Mm-hmm. And keep all of your stuff in your family intact.
Yeah. And then learn some money skills and learn some communication skills so that you'll be better at your marriage and be a better human being. Like I do meet some people who are like, oh, money wasn't the problem in our marriage. I'm like, that's good. And then they like list off, all the other values that were like way off. It's like, why did you marry somebody that was like way over here? And you're like way over there. And they're like, well, I was in love. And it's like, you had an opportunity to make some changes or make some requests.
Yeah. So it sounds like for you, what the money shift has done for you is it helped you double your income, as you said, grow your business. And you had the audacity, if you don't mind me saying, to start a business in the middle of a pandemic. I mean,
and be fearless about it. You're like, hey,
Yes.
Hey, Mary, guess what I'm doing today? I built up, this, and that. And then people were like, how did you do that? Well, I didn't listen to, all of the self-sabotaging thoughts that most people listen to. There's no time. You better hang on. Da, 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 da. And it's like, no, I'm the one in control of my time and my money. I had better make some good choices that work for me.
Okay. So when we had talked earlier, you talked about a financial imposter syndrome. That was new language for me. I'm familiar, of course, with the imposter syndrome, but how does this apply in the financial world?
Oh, there's so many ways. Okay, so financial imposter syndrome is either towards yourself or towards others. That's really what it is. And that's kind of roughly how imposter syndrome works, although it feels like it's more of an internal thing, and then we don't really, we don't handle it too well on the outside. But when it comes to the money situation, I will give you some good examples. So I have met people who have bought homes, didn't matter what the housing market looked like, that were well past their means, right? Like they were going to have to work 2 or 3 jobs to keep that home and a roommate. And so they live in a gorgeous house in a very nice neighborhood. They don't even have children. And they have, I think, some designer items that they own, which is lovely too, great. They are literally eating tuna fish sandwiches every night, if they're lucky, or eating it directly out of the can. Peanut butter and jelly, maybe a ham and cheese sandwich. This is their life. And it will be their life because they have created this perception that they are very well to do, but the house owns them. But they're acting like they own the house. So that's one example. Another example is I've met people who are like, we can't let anybody know that we're running low on cash, right? We can't let anybody know this. So of course we're going to go spend money in Disney World or Disneyland and go to Europe and do all these trips because we're going to do that. Even though they're well over their budget, they have no extra source of income coming in. They're going to go do this. Why? Because they love doing this every year. And they want to make sure that, the neighbors know and the kids know and everyone at their kids' school knows and their boss knows that they're doing okay. But the truth is they're having to downsize every 2 to 3 years and keep buying a smaller house to afford vacations. That's a big financial imposter syndrome. That's like spending routinely, past your means. One of the ways sometimes imposter syndrome, or at least I notice it pretty quickly, and I don't want to say that this happens to every person, but unless you're running an online business, if you're getting 20 to 30 Amazon packages delivered, every other day, what in God's name are you building?
Right.
Like, what are you doing? Are you building a new closet? Because I've asked people, I've asked my neighbors, I've been like, hey, I see you getting a lot of packages. Are you like preparing for something? And they're like, no, I just need to shop.
Okay.
And that could be a possible shopping addiction. But that's a way that, I need to self-soothe because I've got to feel better in some way. And when I have blank, this works for me. Another way it sometimes happens in marriages, this is kind of my favorite, actually, because I always kind of smile, like, what is it like when you were dating? So it does happen in the early parts of the courtship. Whoever is, perhaps maybe a little bit on the wealthier side will pay and pay and pay. So you go to very nice vacations, you go out to eat a lot, you want to win something at a fair, the cash is thrown out, it's done like that. And then, you might get seriously, to the dating phase, or maybe you're engaged, et cetera, et cetera. And what happens is that, the money might be a little less, right? Because you're hopefully putting that money towards a wedding or a honeymoon or something, right? That's when the money values come. Why? Because somebody wants to show everybody, look at me. I can totally afford this person. And it doesn't, affect my bank statement or anything like that. I have seen people say, I have great credit. Everything's working fantastic. And then you find out in the marriage that they don't pay their bills on time. Their parents were paying all the bills. The parents have been loaning the money the whole time. Big time financial imposter syndrome. I'm an adult. I'm totally adulting. No, you're not. You're
right.
absolutely.
You are absolutely not. Two phrases are popping in my head as you're talking about this. I grew up on a farm, so big hat, no cattle is a phrase that would go with this. And then also when you're talking about making financial decisions to create an appearance, to me is keeping up with the Joneses, is it not?
Yes. And so people do like, and the Joneses are oftentimes a specific person that we don't always want to admit who it is. So sometimes it's somebody from childhood that we're still jealous about. And we've got all these feelings of like, well, this family got to do all these wonderful things, and I want to make sure my kids get to do all this stuff. But of course, we don't know the rest of the inside story about, this kid or their family. Or it's like, they have really wealthy friends because they want to be rich. So they got wealthy friends. Well, wealthy friends are living amongst their means.
Right.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. Say maybe, as far as we know, if their parents are going to pay all the bills. Hey, I knew a lady, she was going to start a business. This was years ago. This is when I lived in Phoenix. And she would spend all kinds of money because her parents basically paid the bills every month. So when she had to go start a business, she had no idea about being on a budget and how much things cost. She had no idea. Even though she had her own job, she had her own money, but because she had, oh, mommy's going to pay for this or daddy's going to pay for this on the credit card every month. She had no idea what it was like. So surprise, her business lasted less than 90 days because she had no idea. That's like, because you're living in like magical thinking. You don't understand that. And I do think a lot of times the small business owners and even big companies have that financial imposter syndrome. Why? When you own a big company, if the stock tanks, you might have to lay people off. Not saying that will happen. But if you lose contracts or if there's like a horrible marketing, scandal, somebody seen doing something they shouldn't have done and they work for someplace, that can go very badly. But then there's just other things, so you've got to look like we got it together. This company's great. Everyone's got great mental health. Our employee surveys are great. And then you get into a small business. It's like, do you have, consistent, income coming in every month? What's consistent?
Right.
I get that question. What's consistent? Are you making your bills every month? Mostly. And that's honestly how a lot of entrepreneurs start. We bootstrap. We begin there, knowing that we've got to figure it out. I once met this woman. She was a serial entrepreneur, and I was kind of horrified that she did this. But this was her plan for paying bills. Like, remember the days we had paper and had like a bill? You put it all in a hat, and then you toss it up in the air, and the first one that comes down, you pay.
Oh. Interesting.
Now, she never said she had money to pay all the bills. So if the big one came and maybe the other four were more pressing, I don't know, but I was just like, that's not really how people pay their bills. So I definitely think that happens, inside our brains. We're like, let me find a game. Let me make money a game and I can win at it. And it's like, really, that's magical thinking. Money isn't a game. More people lose in the stock market, their investments, their homes, big investments, even marriages, because you make it a win-lose proposition instead of what is the gift of the situation that I'm in? What new skills do I need to learn? How can I turn this around and give myself the time and the discipline to do it? Because everyone knows what a budget is. Everyone knows how to do it. You look at your in and then you look at your out. Right. And then you've got to figure it, right? This isn't really hard stuff to do. But what most people do, particularly with financial imposter syndrome, is they will do it for a period of time and then they get bored with it. It's not fun. It's not sexy. Having to remind yourself, I only have $20 at the end of this week, is not fun stuff. So it's easier to get into magical thinking of, I'll pay that at the end.
Right. Right. So you and I both know that the pivot has to be the individual taking responsibility for their story about money. And that can be really hard to do because when you're in that space, like we were talking earlier, then when a client is coming to you, they don't see a solution. They're stuck. And so to tell them, well, you need to take responsibility, you're like, I don't know what to take responsibility for. So let's talk about what, on the other side of responsibility, what are some of those outcomes or the benefits that they can get to once they do take responsibility? So we're kind of jump over that to kind of tease out, here's what's on the other side of this bridge for you.
Yeah. So I love this question. So what I love about doing the mental fitness training, the integration with the money is the app is that instead of fighting with you, I just say, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. You're going to do this as well as you can. And then we're going to focus we're going to start to step in every week and focus in on the money. when you're retraining your brain, you get yourself out of the scarcity, the comparison, the confusion, the I don't wanna, it's too hard. And then you start to move into what we call the thrive part of the brain, so that you're like, what's the next best thing I could do in this moment? Maybe I don't have an answer. Maybe I won't spend my money. Good plan. Good plan for like a short-term answer. What's my long-term answer? Gosh, I think I need to spend more time understanding how, if I want to invest, the stock market works, or if you want to buy crypto, which coin. They all work differently. And by the way, you can get robbed with crypto, and unless you have the knowledge of how can I make sure that my investments when I purchase will be taken care of. So it's not, because it just happened last month. I forget the name of the coin, but 190 billion crypto dollars are gone. And all that was left was 126 billion on this platform. They took well over half. And it was a they, meaning somebody broke in, could have been a country, could have been basically
like a hacker kind of situation.
Yeah. Some scammers, thieves, whatever they did. And they basically pulled money out of your account, your crypto account, and it's gone.
Wow.
There's nothing you can do. You could hire somebody to find it. But my guess is probably people who have lots of money kind of an idea. It's like the top 5 people like robbing you. So, and I was just like, man, can you imagine that? Like, you had money and then it's gone. But that's the truth about money crises. That's what usually happens. You had money, or you had a situation that was working, and then it goes away. Like people who survived wars in other countries and famines and disease, they're like, oh yeah, everything was great. And then this one thing happened, and then we didn't have anything. And that's what happened to our grandparents and great-grandparents in the 1920s. They had all this money in the stock market, and then it tanked, and they lost everything. And how many suicides did they have at that point?
Right. And talk about an economy collapsing.
Yeah. So you have to be smarter about your money nowadays. It can't all just sit in a checking account and then you're fine. It can't all just, be in a 401k. You have to know how to move your money, because the world is changing. How we work with money is changing, and what the expectations of the individual to know and balance and work with whatever situation is going on, it's on you. So, I had a conversation with a small business owner this summer, and she was like, I just know I need to spend less. And it's like, well, what are you spending stuff on? Oh, just stupid stuff. What's the stupid stuff? I can't tell you. Like, she knows what she's doing. Again, this is, the knowledge, what you're supposed to be doing. All the information's on Google, but you don't have the money psychology, and you don't have the tools to retrain your brain. So you stop doing stupid stuff. Because I can tell you that somebody will probably cut back for about 3 months to 6 months, and then they'll go right back to where they were. Why?
The core belief hasn't changed.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to do stupid stuff because I enjoy it. It's fun when I spend my money. And This is what I enjoy doing. And if I'm in a pandemic, I can't travel. I can't eat the way I used to. I can't work out. I'm going to do stupid stuff. And I think her stupid stuff probably wasn't that stupid to you and I. I think it was, again, how she felt about it.
Right. Everything comes back to these core beliefs. And ultimately, I think you would agree with me that that's where change has to happen. Because as you just said, like, we can rationalize that this is how it should be. And I could even put habits and routines into place that I'll do it for a while. But if it's not innately satisfying, if it's not meeting that same need and that core belief, then I'm not going to continue to do it. So what are instead of talking about the core beliefs that are limiting, what are some of those new beliefs that you help your clients come to about money?
So one of the things that I coach all my clients on is to become your own money back guarantee. And the reason that we move dramatically over here instead of, terrible things happen to me and I've got to figure it out, is that when you become your own money back guarantee, if you lose money for whatever the reason, again, it doesn't have to be your fault, could be something that happened in the economy, somebody stole your crypto, oopsie, or you lost your the value in your home because the housing market tanked. You didn't do that. That just happened. Then you can figure out another way, another strategy. Because as I said before, when people were showing up, they were losing their homes, bankruptcy, all this stuff. They didn't know what else to do. And the financial market, financial services, is not always there for your benefit. They're going to tell you basically the easiest way for them to get their stuff back.
Right.
Which is, foreclosure, is an easy way. They'll just buy the house back at a cheap print and then they'll sell it and they'll be fine because they can take the loss on their taxes. Totally fine. And then they'll go and make money later when somebody buys the property. They'll make it back in a few years. So they're not worried about that. But for you and I, if we foreclose on a home, that's 7 years on our credit.
So what, going back to that question then about core beliefs, what are some revised beliefs about money that help us stay with our new habits?
So a revised belief might be something very simple, like money comes easily to me. Money actually is one of the easiest things to fix on this planet, but we treat it as it's the heaviest and the hardest thing to lift and to, really fix. So, and even like our thinking of, oh, it's going to take me 5 years to make this money in my bank account. Well, that doesn't sound terrible. That sounds really achievable. 5 years. I wanted it like the billionaires and they make it in like minutes. And it's like, do you have the net worth and the ability to take that risk that the billionaires do? No. So then why would you even compare yourself? Again, comparison, confusion, all that really, again, it's the financial imposter syndrome of I want to be like this. I want to be 25 and a millionaire. Well, that doesn't mean that they keep their money. Most kids who, make a lot of money in a particular business or in a transaction will say they're scared to lose it. And so they make more mistakes by trying not to lose it, like all the other business people tell them to do.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that kind of goes back to, so your new belief is money comes easily. And what you were just saying there, right? Our traditional way of handling money is coming from that scarcity mindset. And so that means I have to do something to defend against losing my money.
Yeah.
So if I'm not defending myself, what am I doing instead?
So instead of defending yourself, you're looking at what are ways I can help my money grow? Is there a place that I could invest? Do I have some capital that I could take a risk on for maybe 3, 6 months, 9 months, or a year to see if it works? Because there's a great expression. I just heard this the other day, but most of our plans are probably going to fail. And I'm not talking about money plans. I'm talking about just most of our plans. Like, oh, I was going to go to this college, didn't work out. Okay. Oh, I was going to move here. Job didn't appear. Oh, I bought this apartment or I moved into this apartment. Ooh. It's full of rats. Okay. Just stuff happens. So what I try to encourage people to think about, not so much, I like this phrase, fail up. We can fail up, but I think that's still a little on the judgmental side. But when you realize that, not everything's going to work out for your benefit, but you have the ability to go when it goes south, when it starts to go south, what do I want to do? So it's the same thing when I ask people when they're dating somebody, because then, I've heard this more than once. I'm in love with so-and-so. Okay, this is wonderful. Is there any point that you would say, I'm out of here? Because you be in love with somebody, that they may not be for your best interest. It's the same thing with our money decisions. You may put money in crypto and realize I'm sinking pretty fast here. I think I'm going to pull my money out, or I'm going to put it in maybe a different coin, or I'm going to invest it differently. Maybe I'm going to ask somebody some questions, or I'm going to realize, whoa, I put 5,000 in. That was what I had for extra money. I'm going to research it totally different this time and really look at it completely different and maybe use something else as, something for an investment if I want to do that. Because when people start to lose money, particularly when it becomes gambling, investing, that kind of thing, we're totally in the scarcity, the competition, and the confusion. On paper, this should have worked, but it didn't. Again, financial imposter syndrome. Everyone else said it was going to work out, because these people look like they got it together. They don't. Most entrepreneurs are broke. A lot of them file for bankruptcy. And again, they could have a multi-million-dollar company. Mm-hmm. Why?
Yeah. So I think what it's boiling down to me, as I'm listening to you, is having to come to a decision about what do I want my relationship with money to be, and taking responsibility for that relationship. And there's all kinds of confusion. And even as you're talking, you're throwing out so many different possibilities that it could get overwhelming. Like, do I do crypto? Do I invest? Do I do real estate? What do I do? How do I do this? I got debt. I got divorce. I've got medical bills I've got to pay. I've got vacations I want to go on. I deserve a vacation. Right. So there's all that confusion. But if it can come down to what do I want my relationship to money to be? And how do I take responsibility for that? Even if the answer in this moment is, I have no idea what taking responsibility for this is going to look like. But I know that I can call Jeannie or I can call somebody else, right? And just start asking about, what does this look like? Who do you know who has a good relationship with money?
Right.
And a real good relationship, right? Not the imposter one that looks good on the outside, but
the money will come, honey.
Yeah,
don't worry. The
right.
money will come. And you're like, yeah, that's magical thinking.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to take responsibility for our relationship with money. And that does not require a plan at all, just a commitment to that decision.
Yeah. And I encourage my clients because we do a bit of money history with them. We look at, about like what happened at what age. And then we also look at, what do you think your parents, so it doesn't always, it doesn't even matter if you have a mother and a father. Could have been your grandparents, could have been your aunts and uncles. It's fine if you have 2 moms, 2 dads. It's totally fine. Single parent, doesn't matter. But where did you inherit this from? Because guaranteed, how we figure out our money always comes from people that we think are older and wiser and what they've told us to do. Again, like I said, we understand everyone knows what a budget is. Everyone knows how to do that. It's just a question of like, am I responsible for this? So when you get to a place of curiosity, so curiosity to me is one of those emotional sort of states of being that we forget that is actually one of the most helpful when it comes to, I wonder why my money is like this. And see, you take all the judgment off of you. Why is my money like this today? Oh, it's like this because, I ended up doing all this spending. Oh, but I had to get all this stuff because I've got the following, things due this month. Okay. I got to figure out a way maybe that I can kind of navigate when the money goes down a little bit and when it goes back up, how do I handle that? It's kind of like when people get bonuses. So there's old, money wisdom, and I think it's probably good wisdom. Your bonus is not something you live off of.
No, right. That's a bonus by definition.
Yeah, you can put that towards bigger bills like student loans if you choose. You could put that towards a vacation. Definitely, you could do that. You could put it towards, buying a home if you wanted to do that. You could definitely put it towards your crypto, whatever else is going on out there, right? But what most people do is we need this bonus to pay for the following. So then people get stuck in and not understanding that you need to categorize things because, the IRS certainly does. They charge you more for your bonus. Why don't you maybe with a little more care?
Oh, I didn't know that piece. Well, I love too what you're talking about curiosity, because I think that is that next step, right? So I'm going to make this commitment to improve my relationship with money. I don't know how to do this because if I did know how to do it, I had have done it already. But what I hear you saying is the next step is just get curious. Get curious, start asking questions. And the questions should be of yourself, because one of the things too that I believe about behavior is that we're always doing the best we can with what we've got.
Yes.
Always. And so even I do this for myself all the time, is when I do something and then I don't get the result I want or whatever, I can go back and say, all right, that decision made sense to me in the moment. What was it that made sense? What was that truth that I was operating from? And is that really true? Right? And then starting to examine, where did that belief come from? Oh, I can see that this is how my parents handled money, or this is what happened after I lost money in this kind of a situation or whatever. We can find the roots. And once we can find the roots, then we can change those, we can shift those beliefs so that now curiosity is moving into inspired action.
Right. And everyone actually has a money victim. This is the thing that people don't like to admit, even people who have lots of money. And how, again, does the money victim sort of impact the financial imposter syndrome? It impacts it quite easily by saying, I don't have to take responsibility, or it's not so it's like, when I gave the example of, we have to go to Disneyland and Disney World every year. My God, what would people think? It's like, I don't think anybody cares whether you go. Who cares? I don't think anybody's like, doing, oh God, what a terrible mother. When they were 8, they didn't go to Disneyland. Oh my God. Nobody's thinking that.
Right.
But the victim is like going to create like a whole story. When it comes to trying to pay off any debt, do you think you have the power to do it? Oh, I don't even know. I don't think I even have $5. Bet you do. Bet you do. It's in relationships, the money victim is often sort of competing with the other money victim in the relationship. Why? It's because, most of us have been taught that we're not really powerful with our money. So when something goes wrong, well, he always wants to go 50-50 in our relationship, but he makes 3 times what I make. So when we go out to eat, I'm paying like this much and I don't want to go out to eat that much. And when somebody might suggest, like a money coach, maybe you want to, figure out a way to work this out so that, you're not draining somebody else's resources and then making them feel bad when they say, I don't want to go out. But you, the one who's not making as much money, are not expected to start making money like they do, nor to be like, oh, they're the best. But you have to be like, I'm okay. Like if you're a school teacher and you work hard at what you do, my God, we love school teachers, don't we? I love them. I think they're great people. And they're not making a ton of money. If they're working really hard, fantastic. Their training is needed. So why would you, again, compare yourself and then make yourself less when you're just as powerful as this person in this relationship?
Yeah, that's another example, right, of using money as our barometer for our value.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole, I feel like money self-esteem is something we could be taught in school, but we're not. So, you have kids that will be like, I'm better than you because we come from a better home, whatever better looks like, right? And, and so people believe that. What was it? Not to get too much into the politics, but I was chuckling when I saw this on Twitter. I think it was Kellyanne Conway. She was making some statements on Fox. I won't get into that, but she did a lot of what I call the comparison and the scarcity. And then she does a lot of what I would say is the imposter syndrome. I'm going to tell you what everyone's talking about when they look at you. And it's like, I don't think that's really what's going on. So what she said was, they, meaning I guess anybody who didn't vote for Trump.
Okay.
They think they're better than you. They think they're better than your kids. They think that, they went to better schools and they think they live in better cities. Now, that's all propaganda. So again, I wouldn't count that as anything but just what it is, propaganda. But it comes from the same part of the brain, which is the survival part, which is I need to what? Make sure that I look stronger and better than you. And I'm going to play the victim card in this conversation so that, you can agree with me that we're getting beat up by the cultural East Coast, West Coast elites, whatever the propaganda is here. Instead of, it's just voters, it's just people. Everyone made their decision. Let's all move on, right?
Yeah. And again, that story going back to this whole idea of comparison and victimhood. I mean, at the core of any kind of money issue is, I would say, and you can agree or disagree with me if that's appropriate, but I would say there's a victim story at the root of every money issue.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And how you pick up, that's a dance expression. We would say this all the time in our little dance workshop when we were working on our personal development. How do you pick up when you lost all your money? We would have to go picking it up. And I don't mean like running around the floors grabbing for imaginary money. That's magical thinking in dance. Thank you. But really what it was like, maybe I need to take a few minutes and be sad that I lost it. Honoring your feelings and your emotions. Maybe I need to be angry at myself and maybe the situation, maybe another person. And then what is my next step?
Right.
And the next step was maybe I'm going to get a shovel, literally. Like I'm going to dig myself out of this. Maybe I'm going to need to ask for some help. Not necessarily money help, but like ask for help. Like, hey, can somebody help me with this? Can somebody help me with that? Maybe I'm going to have to consider getting a second job. Maybe I might need to sell something, if it was a, high value that you lost or whatever. Maybe, some people literally said my plan was to go to therapy so I can forgive somebody who took money from me. And I thought that's real money in action. That's how somebody who will forgive and will be like, oh my gosh, I can now move on. Because what's not always thought of is that when we have debt, it's usually we have not forgiven somebody. Psychologically in the brain, that's how it sometimes works when it's about money issues. So it could be ourselves. We haven't forgiven ourselves, or it could be literally a long list of people we are still unhappy about. And again, that feeds into the financial imposter syndrome. These jerks got all this, and I got stuck with this.
Right. What a powerful conversation, right? Because money impacts all of us. And as we were saying at some point in this conversation, I think we all have a victim story about money because, as you said earlier too, we've not been taught anything different, right? Most of the time, I mean, we're born to young parents who haven't figured out money for themselves yet, most likely, right? And they're teaching those same skills then to their young children. And that's what we learn. And that's what we end up perpetuating. But now we have resources like you who can help us get to those money victim stories, help us take responsibility and maintain responsibility for that, and then take that inspired action that moves us into that healthy relationship with money that we really want.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you feel empowered, when you feel like, oh, I could actually work this out and not have to work 2-3 jobs, because this is another thing that kind of works in the brain. I've met people who are broke, even immigrants who, you know, they're like, oh yeah, I was totally broke. Because why? They had money and then they just spent it. And it's not like they spent it on stuff. They gave tons of money away to family that needed it, or they, you know, bought stuff that they absolutely needed to give their children. And they've never had that kind of money. So they went through it pretty quickly. Again, very common. And so they'll say, oh, I was broke. So what do? What they only know how to do is they'll go work 2-3 jobs for 2 or 3 years, totally get flush again. And they're like, oh, this is great. And then what happens? The minute they stop working 2 or 3 jobs because they want time off, they want to take a vacation, want to do that, all the money goes out. Same thing again. They spend money here. They give a ton to their family. They, buy some more things, or they're going to start a business, but they don't really have any business acumen. Surprise. But they're going to go do all this stuff. And then they go right back down. And they're like, that's okay. I'll just go work another 2 or 3 jobs. So I have met immigrants who were in their 60s and 70s who have been, completely broke like 4 or 5 times in their life. And they're okay with it. But that's the money psychology of, when you have it, just give it away, because people need it more than I do, because I can be broke and I'll be fine because my life isn't that bad when I was living in the old country. And it's sort of like, whoa, you don't have to live like that. You could work less. And there's even strategies you could put your money away. So if you need to give it to certain people, you could do that. And they're like, what? I've never heard of that. Because they don't trust banks. It's like always like money in the mattress or in their sock drawer. You're like, wow. They always have cash. Because that's what will get them through.
Right. Exactly. And as you were saying, even with the crypto thing, like they don't trust that the money will be there when they need it. So this pattern of I'll work several jobs, make some money, stop working, lose the money, work more jobs, make the money, and then lose it. Again, that's just replicating those core beliefs that we were taught as a young child. And if that's not the relationship that you want with your money, make another choice. And the first choice is, this is not the relationship that I want with my money. Maybe I don't even know what I want this relationship to look like. Again, speaking with coaches like you who can help them create that vision of what a relationship with money could look like for them, and how that could impact their relationships and their health and just their ability to enjoy life.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite stories, which I know was so like the way he told it. This gentleman was, I think, in his 50s. He was from Moscow. This was a few years ago when I met him, and he was a doctor. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I was in medical school in Moscow," and then he emigrated to the U.S. And I go, "Well, how did you get into medical school? Here in the U.S.?" He goes, "Oh, I stole some pizzas, and I just enrolled myself in medical school." Now I know that's a totally silly story, but like literally, if you are a child and you hear that as the story, you just steal some things, even though that's wrong. And you'll steal pizza, which is easy. And then you'll get right into and that's, again, why do people tell fairy tales like that? Because they don't really want to tell people that they were scared for months, that they couldn't really eat for months. Nobody wants to tell the ugly story. Instead, they'll tell a cute little fantasy of, You steal some pizzas, you can go to medical school. So now every time I see a pizza delivery driver, I'm like, that's somebody working on medical school. I know it. They're going to steal some pizza after the end of this delivery, and they're going to go to medical school, which I don't think actually happened. But that's what I mean. Like, you get these magical stories, and then you're like, of course, it should totally work out. Well, let's go steal some pizza.
Yeah. No. All right. So if you are not in a relationship with money that fulfills you, that empowers you, Jeannie is your coach. So Jeannie, tell us what you have coming up and how people can reach out to you.
So I have a free money masterclass accelerator. And it's this Thursday. And it's like what I always say, like, just sign up, because you can always get the recording. And, if you can't be present, you can't be live, because I do it 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I know sometimes people are like, but I'm at work. And it's like, yeah, but, like, how many people are like on a call and doing something else at work, by the way? That's a whole nother story. But anyway, but I'm like, hey, get it. And then you get to hear me for an hour, really kind of get into deep diving into what is it like with the money brain, and then going, into how do you really get into the thrive part of the brain, so that you can actually have what I call money sage power, so that you're not going to run around and tell silly little stories about how you got into medical school, you're in deep debt, and there's no cash for anything, but you showed up to work today. Hi, how are you? Like, that doesn't help anybody, because you just pass on the same story to everyone else. So a lot of times people who show up are what I call lineage breakers. They're going to break the lineage of being broke, of scarcity, of comparison, and they're going to grow their money with compassion, so that they can do things that they really want to do. A lot of people want to give their money away, and this is a good thing. It just depends on how you want to do that. Do you want to give it to family? Again, that's continuing the lineage. Or do you want to give it to charity? Do you want to tithe? How do you want to do this? And there's all different things that you can do. But money will come to you if you believe it. And the work that I do is deeper than mindset, because I help you retrain your brain. So it's
Excellent.
Not think it and it'll happen.
Right. Yeah. Fascinating. Thank you so much. We will have links in the show description for your website, as will we also have a registration link for your money mindset. Okay. And because this probably won't air before next Thursday, this is an ongoing event?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
So you can register, and then you'll get on the list, and then you can get the recording if you're not live. But it's absolutely, this is my way of showing people here's some free information. If it applies to you for 1 hour, for you to learn something about how money works in your brain and how you can do something different.
Beautiful. So again, if you're ready and willing to take responsibility to move out of that victim story and into the thriving part of your brain, Jeannie is your coach. Jeannie, thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I've learned a lot from you as well.
Oh, thank you so much. All right. Well, I know I will see you again, Mary.
We sure will. All right. Take care.